but we're just testing it out. My name's Rob Trotta, and we're going to be talking about a lot of different things. The budget. I have my assistant here, Susan Eckert, who you can't see, but she'll be telling me from time to time to slow down talking. Is it working, Mike?
Yes.
Okay. Let's wait until at least a minute or two before we get started. Just so that on the background, I want you to know that some background about myself. I was a cop for 25 years, about 10 of which I was with the FBI Violent Crimes Task Force. And during that time, I was assigned to the FBI in Melville. I had top secret clearance, I did a lot of great things, and some circumstances came about, and I decided to run for public office. You know, knowing it was a little bit of a change, I did it. We'll get into the reasons a little bit later on. But now I've been here for 4 years, and I can tell you it's one of the most disturbing things I've ever seen. It's really concerning for me because I have kids, and I want them to be able to live here. And seeing what I've been seeing, it's really bad. I mean, I don't know that people know this, but there's like 17,000 pending foreclosures in this county right now. 17,000. Like, you can move that back a little slightly. And 2,500 abandoned houses. We're number 4 in the country for abandoned houses. That's not a good thing. It's not a good thing. This county is one of the richest counties in the entire country, yet we're heading towards bankruptcy. We've had 3 bond ground downgrades in the past year, or 2 years, and that's not a good thing. So let's start back in 2012. How are we doing there, Mike?
Good.
Good?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. In 2012, I decided to run, and I came in, and that was the same about time county executive came in. It was actually, I came in 2013, but he came in 12, but let's go back to there. At the time, we were facing about a $1.6 billion long-term debt, and about $400 to $500 billion, depending upon who you're talking about, short-term yearly deficit. And the police didn't have a contract. Now, I was a policeman. I always loved the job. I jumped out of bed to do it. And I don't begrudge anybody a raise. But there's going to be a theme that's going to be running through this whole thing, and it has to do with campaign finance and too much money in special interests. So let's go there. Now, if you were the county executive, and you came into office, and you were to say, oh, we're $1.6 billion budget shortfall, and there's a $400 million budget deficit, and the cops don't have a contract, would anybody give them a 28% pay increase at a cost of $400 million? Just to put it in perspective, a 28% pay increase is almost 3 times the cost of living over the period of the contract, which is 8 years. So my parents, over the past 8 years, have gotten a 10% increase in their $17,000 Social Security. And our senior citizens are getting that same small increase. They're getting a 28% pay increase over that time on a huge salary. And it used to be when you were a cop and, you know, you had a good salary and a good pension. Now it's like, you know, it's breaking us. Now, sitting on the other side, having been a cop and doing this, you know, I don't blame the cops. I don't blame the union. That's their job. The problem is the politicians just do not do anything except whatever they want. And the reason is large sums of money. Money that initially you're not going to believe what I tell you, how much money they get, but it's going to be large sums of money. And the reason I'm doing this is because I have a bunch of Republicans out there running, and they are running against this machine. You know, a mailer costs about $5,000 or $10,000. They're mailing mailers out that, you know, they're getting 2 and 3 a day. So how is a guy who's just, you know, I'll use Hector Gavilia from Dix Hills as an example. He raised about $6,000. He's going against someone that raised almost $115,000. Now, why did that happen? Let's go back to the police contract slightly. That's $400 million. So every year in a $3 billion budget, that contract goes up about $60 million. And sales tax revenue has been basically flat. The economy has not been doing well. How do you make up $60 million a year? You know how you make it up? Fees, which is the topic of the time. I mean, I'm sure there's people out there that got red light tickets, and I can tell you firsthand, I've probably watched 200 of them, and having been a cop, there's not a single one I would have written a ticket to, because 95% are right on red. You pull up, you just don't stop all the way, and bang, you'd be able to write on red. I'm going to tell you a story about a guy named Sal. He's an 87-year-old Korean War vet. He had never gotten a ticket. He had never, ever gotten a car accident. So over the course of a month, when they put the new camera up at Comac Road, he would go up to the light, look, no one was coming, and would just make a right-hand turn. At the end of the month, he got 7 tickets. 7 mailed to his house. So he came into my office, all upset. I said, Sal, you're already 6 years old. Don't worry about it. Don't even pay him. They're not going to do anything. The worst thing it'll do, it'll go on your credit record. So what do they start doing? A $20 increase, $20 increase. 6 months later, Sal comes in again. I said, Sal, I know it bothers you, but just don't think about it. It's okay. I looked at him. Don't worry about it. Maybe about 3 months later, I'm having breakfast at a diner, and a guy goes up and goes, oh, did you hear about Sal? No, what happened? He's in the hospital. All he's talking about are these stupid tickets. So I drive down to the Northport VA. I sit next to his bed. I said, Sal, don't worry about the tickets. I took care of him. All he was complaining about was stupid tickets. And 4 hours later, he passed away. So is this what we're doing to our citizens of this county? It's absolutely absurd. And the reason is this. The contracts, the special interests. I'm going to give you an example of something that is going to really upset you. If my brother got a contract to paint the bathroom in the H. Lee Dennison building, a $500 contract, I would have to recuse myself from voting on that contract. Yet, legislators can take hundreds of thousands of dollars in campaign funding, and I'm talking like $200,000 over the course of 2 or 3 years, or 2 or 3 elections, and they get to vote on the contract. How is that possible? How is that even remotely legal? But it is. Another great example I use. This was really, in the past maybe 2 sessions, we had 3 contracts that really stuck in my mind. Now I want you to follow. It's a little bit of numbers. There was a $150,000 contract to put a guardrail, a plan to put a guardrail in. Not to put the guardrail in, a plan. $350,000 for a study to do a sidewalk in Southampton. Not the sidewalk, just the study. And my favorite, $500,000 to do a plan for a brick extension to the property section out at the police headquarters. Now think about it. 3 things. $150,000 for a study for a guardrail, $350,000 for a study for a sidewalk, and $500,000 for a study for a cement block square extension to property section. That's $1 million. $1 million on 3 small projects. Now, ask yourself this. Why wouldn't we hire an architect for $100,000 a year right out of school? Certainly he could do a guardrail, a sidewalk, and a square building. And he could do that probably in 3 months. And then we would have him for the next 10 years. Why? I'll tell you why. Because that guy you hired wouldn't give campaign contributions. But the guy you hire for the sidewalk gives $35,000. The guy you hire for the guardrail gives $10,000. The guy who you hire for the square building gives $40,000. And that's why it's so expensive to live in this county. That's why we have fees like the red light camera fee, the mortgage fee, which, by the way, let's talk about the mortgage fee. I had another woman, a senior citizen, who took a home equity loan out to do her cabinets over in her kitchen after her husband passed away. And she went and looked, and she took out this loan and decided not to do it because it was too expensive. She went to close the loan, never wrote a single check. Guess what? She had to give a check to the county for $1,100 because her parcel, her house, was broke up into 2 parcels. So it would normally be $550, but now it's $1,100. So this is what we're doing. Is this killing business? Is this something that would just, who would ever do this? But they do it because they need money. Why? Because they got into contracts they cannot afford to pay. I mean, let's go back to the beginning here. The county executive comes in. He's flat, busted, broke. We have a $1.6 billion budget shortfall. We are $400 million in short-term debt. And what does he do? Gives a 28% increase at a cost of $400 million. I don't want to get into the nitty-gritty of how we pay that every year, but rest assured, we're going to show you some charts in a little while on how we do it. And it's all about fees. Nothing more about fees. I want to get into some other things about the drinking water. The county executive stands up and always says, my number 1 concern is drinking water. Best we have to take care of it, we have to do whatever we possibly can. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we have a fund. Well, we had a fund with about $180 million in it. And back in 2004, you, the citizens of this county, voted in a referendum that the Democrats pushed forward. The Republicans did not push for this. The Democrats did. Excuse me. And that referendum is very simple. It said three wonderful things. It said drinking water quality. It said open space, and my favorite, tax stabilization. Now, who out there would not vote for those three things? Of course you would. So they're going to borrow $30 million. They're going to borrow it, $30 million, 20 for drinking water and 10 for open space. Okay, look, we're saving our environment. And then the tax stabilization. The tax stabilization is my favorite thing in the world. You know what tax stabilization means? It means they stole $171 million, $171 million in 3 years out of the sewer fund, which was supposed to be for clean water, sewer expansion, and making the community better and the water quality better. They took it to pay salaries. And guess what? After this year, we took $82 million of that this year, we have to start paying it back. So guess what? It's 5% a year till 2029. And then there will be a balloon payment in 2029. And where will these legislators and where the county executive be in 2029? He'll be in Florida. You have to take responsibility. You people out there listening to this, it's serious as a heart attack. You need to educate yourself as to what's going on in this county. Look, Republican, Democrat, I don't care what you are. You really, really need to take a deep breath, look what's going on, educate yourself, and say, listen, I'm voting for the guy who's not taking special interest money, whether he be a Republican or Democrat. I'm voting for the guy who's going to say, listen, I'm going to vote no for this contract. I'm not going to let this happen. I want my kids to be able to live here. I'm going to vote for the guy who says, we're not kicking the can down the road anymore. I voted on a few contracts. So my standard thing was on the contracts was, if we're kicking the can down the road, if we can't pay them this year, if we're giving them, taking their raise or deferring something down the road, I'm not voting for it. So that's what I did. I continually would across the board. But guess what? There's 6 of us. There's 6 Republicans and 12 Democrats. And guess what? We can get nothing through. Nothing. So it was actually interesting today. Newsday came out with their legislative endorsements. They endorsed me, and they endorsed basically all the incumbents. Now we have 4 open seats this time. So we have a chance to take over and stop this spending. And guess what? Newsday came out and endorsed every incumbent. But first they said it's dysfunctional. We should have a stricter budget. They're not getting along. It's not going well. And what do? They endorsed everybody. And for the 4 empty seats, they endorsed 4 Democrats. Listen, I'm not saying Democrat, Republican. It doesn't matter. People need to be able to say no. And they're not saying no. They're not. And let me give you an example. We're going to switch gears totally now because this is something I think you people want to see. Let's go back to Steve Ballone when he took office, and he put Chief Burke into office. Now, Chief Burke was, as everyone knew in the entire police department, a borderline criminal. He was absolutely out of his mind. So during his tenure, this headline comes up. Chief Burke, conduct unbecoming. And it comes up, now keep in mind, he's the sitting chief of police. And my favorite one is, Sergeant Burke did engage in personal sex, including possession and sale of illegal drugs, prostitution, larceny, is substantiated. Sergeant Burke engaged in a sexual acts in his police vehicle while on duty, in uniform, is substantiated. You tell me how the county executive could stand by when the highest ranking police department officer in his county is on the cover of Newsday for having sex with prostitutes in his car. And he stood by him, which leads to my culture of corruption behind me, which I will take down for you. All these headlines behind me have gone on in the past 3 or 4 years. And this is one of the richest counties with the most upscale police department, the highest paid police department in the country. This is what's going on. Now, what's troubling to me now is that my fellow Republican candidates running for office are being criticized by the Long Island law enforcement, which is the PBA and their subsidiaries, for not being tough on crime. Well, let me tell you something. The PBA and the legislators stood by and did nothing when this happened. They did nothing when this happened. So they pulled people out of the FBI, out of the DEA. Now think about it. We have an opiate epidemic going on right now. Horrible opiate epidemic. For 30 years, we had 5 detectives assigned to the DEA. In 2002, Chief Burke pulled them out. And for 4 years, there was nobody there. Chief Burke pulled myself and 2 other detectives out of the FBI Violent Crimes Task Force. And what did they do? Nothing. They did nothing. So you need to take note. These legislators stood by after I got elected. I would bring them in the back and I'd say, are you kidding me? Look at this. How can we have this guy in this county running our police department? And they sat silent. I take exception to the fact that my old union is actually saying that other legislators are not standing behind the police. And that couldn't be the furthest from the truth. Because I can assure you the Republican legislators aren't going to stand by, and I've got promises from all of them, not to take money. Because once you take money, when that contract comes up, when you take $100,000 in campaign contributions, don't think for 1 minute it doesn't affect your decision. Don't think when Steve Ballone took $200,000 somewhere in that area from Jerry Wolkoff, who's building a big project over there, that it does not affect his decision making. So I have introduced a bill that was killed, I think, once or twice already in committee. I will be introducing it again right after this election, and it says this, plain and simple. You can take all the money you want from the police unions, every penny, but you can't vote on that contract. Anybody doing business with the county, if you're a contractor who's going to do a design for a building or the design for the sidewalk, you cannot give more than $1,000 per election cycle. That's it. Because maybe for $1,000, I would like to make it nothing, but the Constitution says you have to be able to give. I want to limit it so much that it flattens the playing field. And guess what? The sitting legislators, I'm sure they don't want to be bought. I'm sure they don't want the pressure of a $400 million contract coming in front of them and saying, oh, I got to vote for it. They got me elected. I took $100,000. I really think deep down, they're good people, but they're just not acting properly. I mean, when I retired, the FBI gave me a plaque, and on that plaque it said something very, very simple. Forgot what the heck it said. It said, evil can only flourish when good men do nothing. And guess what? A lot of times when this happened, good men sat by and did nothing. Zero. I can't tell you how many times I had the legislators in the back saying, are we out of our minds? So I think that if you push and if you get out there and spread the word to everyone that we need, look, if I was a Democrat and it was going the other way, I would say vote for the Democrat. But I'm telling you now, I need Anthony Piccarello, I need Hector Gavilia, I need Gary, I need Christie, I need them all. I need Rudy Sunderman out east. I need them to know that the people of this county are educated, they're made aware of what's going on. Because, I know you're on the soccer field, I know you're on the lacrosse field, I know you're not paying attention. But I want you to pay attention, I want you to spread this, I want you to share this, and I want it to get out there. Because we need to save this county. We need to save Suffolk County. Because it's in bad, bad shape. Listen, thank you for tuning in. I'm going to do this again with a little more detail. We'll do a Gilgo Beach thing one day. We'll do a couple of things in depth into this guy getting arrested. It's a little embarrassing. Like, if you pick that up, let's just look at this a little bit. It's a little bit embarrassing that this is our government. This is our county government. Three of the top, you can put it back down. Three of the top guys in our county government. The head of public corruption for this county it's been arrested and been indicted for what? For public corruption. How can we do this? I know I'm a little disappointed. I'm a little slow tonight, not being my usually energetic self. But I will tell you, the next time we do this Trotta Talks, we're going to get into detail about what happened here. As I equate this is like getting Al Capone for tax evasion. There's way more to come. I mean, I could do 2 hours on the Gilgo Beach murders. I can do probably 5 hours on the IDA, the Industrial Development Corp. But I want you to understand something. I need you to get involved. Without you getting involved and getting out and voting, there's no way this is going to change. I want everyone listening to this to get out there and vote, no matter what. But I really want you to vote Republicans because there's no balance of power. We have no control over everything. And I can tell you something. If any guy I support, any Republican, I will guarantee you we will abandon them if they don't stick to the principle of campaign finance reform. Absolutely. I don't want to pay a fee for an alarm fee. I don't want to pay a mortgage fee. And by the way, let's go slightly about the mortgage fees. We're being sued for that, and we're going to have to give that money back. One more thing before I go. I want you to know that the taxpayers of this county borrowed $1.2 million because in Wyandanch Rising they couldn't fill the stores, and we are going to subsidize the Long Island Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in Wyandanch. Where does that come from? We have to move a road in Patchogue because Anheuser-Busch, a billion-dollar company, I think it's $1.5 million to move the road, wants more green space in front of their building. Special interests are controlling this county and costing us millions of dollars every year, forcing our citizens off this island and causing our taxes to go through the roof. I mean, we are basically funded by sales tax. And I want to do one more thing, as long as I got you there. I want to show you a quick thing on the county budget. This is the county budget. Let's say it's $3 billion. Your revenue from your general fund tax on your house, your county portion, is about this much. It's a $49 million in a $3 billion budget. So when they stand up there, those Democrats, and say, we didn't raise your general fund tax, but guess what? They raise it every year, the equivalent of 100% by taxes and fees. So guess what? Don't be fooled by them at all. Well, thank you very much, and good night.